Welcome to the Off Central Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Kirk. I'm joined today by the famous Brit from Baltimore, Pastor Jonathan Prothero. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be a good one. I feel like today is going to be a really good podcast in a sense that we're gonna dive into some things that are, I don't want to say all things generosity, but there's some generosity going to be flown around here today.
Yeah, if we were going to cover all things, this would be a long podcast.
This would be a year's worth of podcasting.
Yeah. But we'll definitely touch on a couple of things.
Sure.
You opened up a new series this week on generosity, and I think it's fair to say it's probably Jesus's main teaching, like his predominant teaching. I'm trying to think if there's a topic he brings up more often than generosity. I don't think there is. I have to look up the stats. I just know about.
I mean, I've heard people say he talks about it more than heaven and hell combined, heaven, hell, and prayer combined.
Well,
those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, the stats I read, 25% of his parables are directly related to money, but 50% of them are directly related to generosity. So half of his sermons.
Because generosity could be giving forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So
that's literally to give something. To forgive is to give up that right to justice or whatever, or retribution. So So generosity is certainly a mainstay for Jesus. But for some reason, I think in terms of our preaching, it's one that we maybe don't bring up as often as Jesus brings up.
Yeah.
Not us. When I say we, I just mean
we don't do well. And
church.
I'll tell you why I haven't done it well. I'll just be truthful and honest with you. I don't want it to ever sound self-serving. Yeah.
Well, pastors have this double-edged sword of we're here to help disciple people into becoming the most generous, full, perfect version that mimics Jesus as much as possible, but at the same time also having responsibilities of employment and a building to manage, and
lights
just
to turn on,
practical, lights to turn on, microphones to have, a message to send out, a family to feed at home.
Sure.
So there's this. I think there's this double-edged sword, and
I agree.
By the way, both are absolutely bibical and right to do a New Testament. That's not a. This isn't a critique for pastors asking for something at all. I'm a pastor, so right.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, there's this. It can be hard to talk about giving if you are in some way a benefactor of people's generosity. That's a difficult line to toe, and I understand how lots of pastors can feel icky talking about money.
I to be honest with the audience, I have felt and then convicted over the fact that I didn't, because this is what God wants. Like I do it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I want someone else to do it, to be blessed the way I'm blessed, the way you can bless others with it.
Yeah.
And be in a position. And I think when we looked at this series coming up, I didn't have a trepidation about it. I really was excited about it because we coupled it with Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey, just a shout out. We coupled it with that because we want people to be blessed. But a lot of times it's behaviors that creates us not being able to be a blessing to others because of the behaviors that we have when it comes to around our finances.
Yes.
Giving. Yeah.
Well, you've touched on something that's actually really big within Christian circles in America, Western Church, and it might as well bring it up straight away.
Okay.
I think what you said.
I'm not sure what you're going to do, but let's do it.
Well, what you said, because I'm thinking through this as I'm preparing as well messages for this, but your point is to have enough to be a blessing.
Yeah.
Like we want people to the stage. And I think that's the key difference between prosperity gospel and what Jesus teaches.
That's right.
And I think it's fair to say that prosperity gospel is a heretic teaching. And prosperity gospel is give to get.
That's right.
And whilst that's a true, it's a true enough principle, but not the whole truth.
That's right.
And it leaves out really important point that we don't give to get and then it stops there. We give to get so that we can give again.
Yeah. That's right.
There's the cycle of we don't just want to enrich our lives.
That's right.
So that we can know that our soul is taken care of and we're comfortable. And we have a massive 401k. That like all of that's fine, but the whole point of getting to that stage is so that you actually have the ability to be a blessing to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the cycle of it. Like you just said, it's when you're able to listen. Scripture tells us this, right? It's more. Paul wrote it in the book of Acts. It's more blessed to give than to receive, right? And it is. Think about the gifts that you've gotten, and which are amazing. I'm sure you've gotten incredible gifts, John. I'm sure those listeners right now have gotten some incredible gifts, but just remember the day when you're actually able to give those gifts and give those kinds of gifts and give over and above and all those things. It's like, it's so much more fun to give. It
is. And not only that, it's equal to when you give more, you get more, there's more joy from it as well.
I love Christmas and I love around what's wrapped around that as far as not giving or getting, but it's the giving part of it. It's the heart behind it, and I think, those are seasons where I love to bless our staff. That's always fun. That's always joyful for me to be able to, hey, here's a Christmas gift for you guys. You know,
we love it too.
And I mean, it's but it's like it's awesome. It's just the feeling of it. It's so much better to do that than to receive. Actually,
absolutely. This is a quote taken from Treasure Principle by Randy Alcorn. He said,
"Ooh, I know him.
Yeah. Oh, you know him?
Yeah,
You know him.
I
Look
do.
at you. Oh. So okay, just drop that one in.
Hey now.
Didn't know we were name dropping.
I don't know him. You know?
Okay, so you don't know him.
We're not best friends. I know of him. Yeah.
That's less exciting. But he said, and he sums it up in this line. He said, "God prospers me not to raise my standard of living, but to raise my standard of giving." And not only does it rhyme, but it's just a great truth as well.
So good.
Like God prospers me not to buy the third Rolex. Or whatever. And so this is a really interesting question, something to wrestle with. Do you think the question, people ask this question, they say, how much is it ethical for Christians to make? I would rephrase this question. Your thoughts on this. Not how much is it ethical for a Christian to make, but how much is it ethical for a Christian to keep? Like, have you ever thought through that, or like, is there a point? Is there a line? I don't need to put a number on it, but at what point in your earnings do you go, I have enough? Like at what point do you simply say, I make 20 million a year. I may give 50% of it away, but do I need 10 million to sustain my life?
Right.
And I think that's the question that Jesus gets at all the time is how much, how much of money is ruling your life?
I've even heard of CEOs giving 90% of their stuff away.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
that's
And
crazy.
they still make more than most people.
Yeah, than most people
in the church make.
But they give it 90% of their stuff away.
Right.
And I mean that is extraordinary generosity. Pearl and I try to incrementally, like percentage wise, try to do more every year. We try to do at least something or give to an organization, even outside what we tie to the church. And I mean, I personally, as a minister in the Assemblies of God, has to take a big chunk, a portion of my tithe to give to the movement. The movement. But while still giving to the church as well, and then over and above all those things. So I think, I don't know. You're right. Keeping, oh gosh.
It's just a question to wrestle with, isn't it?
If I just stayed where I'm at right now in this life, like what I have, like the stuff, I'm just talking about stuff now, stuff.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need more.
Right.
I don't need a bigger home. We raised our boys. Matter of fact, we can downsize if we wanted to now,
Right.
But I like my backyard.
Space.
You like my space a little bit. But yeah, I mean, when you look at it, when you take a step back from that, John, you're absolutely right. It's what we keep sometimes is really the thing. Like it's, the Lord talks about that, right? It's building bigger barns for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't need a bigger barn.
Yeah, right. Right.
To keep more stuff in.
I just think sometimes we ask the wrong questions, like how much is it ethical for a pastor to make, or how much is it ethical for a Christian to make? And I think we all have to ask ourselves the question, how much is it ethical for me to keep? Based on my circumstance, my income, my whatever it is, socioeconomic status. John Wesley said this. He says, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a good rule for life.
It's a great rule for life. Make as much as you can. I encourage anybody that's whatever field you're in, whether you work for a 501c3 or you own your own company, like make as much, save as much, and then listen. It is when you're saving too, like that part of that that you can continue to be a blessing to generations, to your families, that you can be a blessing and allow them to continue to that cycle of being a blessing for future generations. It's not just you're building the wealth just for you here and now. It's so it can outlive your life. Yeah, exactly. I think Shane Willard made this point on a podcast that we had where he said, you could have a billionaire and he can give 99.9% of his wealth away, which would be great. A lot of good would come out of that for sure. Yeah. Or he can find a sustainable mode of giving and then pass inheritance on where his kid or child can do sustainable, amount of giving, and all of that can increase. And like you said, you can have generationally, over the long term, you can have far more effect in giving over the years and over generations than you could in just one lump sum giving. It's a massive topic, but money goes like straight to our heart, really, doesn't it? It's a really difficult, emotive thing to talk about, especially in America. I've discovered, we love money here. Oh man.
I mean, that's just part of and
that's the root of all evil.
The root,
the love of it, right? It really is. I mean,
but it's hard not to. In sort of a capitalist culture, it's we were taught. And look, there's wonderful things about capitalism. This isn't a big knock on that.
Oh no, we're
not.
Amazing
opportunity for striving and growth and competition and bettering yourself. All of that is wonderful. There's creativity and imagination that comes out of capitalism that you don't get in other structures. But one of the glaringly big downside is just the pursuit of money for our entire lives.
And it's the pursuit of stuff. Because you need money to buy the stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, well, I got to do this so I can buy this and I can have this and that's why Dave Ramsey's programs and things like that are so good for people, because they're so far in debt.
Yeah, they are.
They can't even afford to pay their mortgage, or they can't afford to keep the lights on, or they can't, because of just poor decision making. It's one of the scriptures that I actually have it here too. It's one of the scriptures I shared on Sunday, just leading into talking and really just supporting and coming alongside of our group leaders in the Dave Ramsey financial piece was Proverbs 22:7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. And it's true. It is their slave driver. And when you're in $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 worth of credit card debt, you're a slave to it. You're a slave to it. And God never wants us to be a slave to things like that.
Right.
He's our master, but he calls us friends, sons and daughters. It's relational, but you never want something like that to master your life, and a lot of that is, I think, steeped or rooted in, or at least rooted in, maybe not steeped in. It's the wrong word, but rooted in greed, stuff. We're just trying to fulfill something in our life, place something in our heart and our life to fulfill that part. And stuff, you know all about it. Stuff just goes away. Eventually it rusts.
Yeah.
It gives up the ghost. Yeah. It loses its glamour.
Quicker than you'd expect.
Yeah.
And it does it very, almost without even noticing.
Yeah.
And then you're obsessing about the next thing or the next purchase whatever.
That's right. Because it's a feel to it.
Yeah, like, totally. And it does feel good. Like, to be fair, when you buy something, buy a new car, that first day, that first week, Oh my gosh, driving it around and the smell and the excitement, all of that. But then it dissipates and you're just left with the bill that lasts a lot longer than a couple of weeks. You've got a 5-year payment plan. Spending $500 a month on a vehicle.
Spilt milk in the back, and
exactly.
McDonald's French fries are in the seats, and it's all ground in, puking and throwing up in the back seat. And with that good car smell.
Debt just seems to have got a grip on so many people. Like when it comes to finances, you'll know this. It either goes one of two ways. It goes like what you talked about. We bend towards greed, or we bend towards fear and lack. So money either makes us feel like I want more of it, I need more of it, or I don't have enough of it, I can't provide. And so money has this way to draw us into those two arenas of life, and there's overlap between them. Like greed leads into fear, and I think fear leads us into greed sometimes as well.
It's definitely a cycle, right? God supplies because he's a supplier. He gives you the ability to get wealth. In Deuteronomy, it tells us that. Whatever your gift, your talent, whatever it is, whether you're the best roofer on the planet or the best CEO out there, right? It's a gift that God has given you to do those certain things to gain wealth. And in gaining wealth, that's how he supplies us. And in supplying, then we consume. And then when we consume, then we start to lack or feel like we have lack, right? I mean, look at COVID, toilet paper. You know what I'm saying? Like people would run, like they had to put a buying moratorium on toilet paper. Like you could only do one. Like it's that kind of things. Like when people start feeling like they've consumed and now they're lacking, what do? They become fearful. And when you're fearful, then you want to consume more because you're thinking that you're never going to get this again. So it's a bad cycle.
Stockpile more of
That's
it.
right.
Save it. And it's ridiculous. Like of all of the crises to come out of COVID, I would not have expected toilet paper to be on top of the list.
Wasn't that wild?
I wish I got those stocks.
Clorox.
I
think it was Clorox.
Purell, I can understand that one.
Procter and Gamble.
Yeah, P&G did very well. I'm sure out of that. But exactly. And I think there's, like you said, there's this understanding in Christianity which is very different from the way that the world teaches us about our stuff. I think there's two ways that the world teaches us: is that you own nothing or it's yours. In the Western context, we suffer from the Greco-Roman sort of structure of how we've been taught to think about our stuff. Like it's your house. You can go and knock down a wall or dig up the grass, or you may have to get some planning permissions, but ultimately it is your property.
Nothing like the UK.
You can paint it. England, Western civilizations, it is your property.
It's yours.
That's your car. Hey, if you want to take a hammer to it, it's yours. And there's a biblical sort of third way to this, which is that we are stewards for a certain time, that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And we've been placed here as caretakers, just like Adam and Eve were placed as caretakers of the garden. Like right from the beginning to make things prosper, to make things be fruitful, to multiply stuff, and then to share that with the community around us. But we get locked into the money is mine, the stuff is mine, the house, the bedroom, it all belongs, to this sort of ego that's in here. Is that what Jesus is talking about when he talks about you can't serve two masters? I can read the quote here from Matthew 6. He says, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. And he talks about how you'll either love one and hate the other, or you'll hate one and love the other.
Gosh, it's so challenging for people.
It's just, of all the things he could have put up in opposition, it's God and money.
Because people would say, well, I don't love money.
Yeah,
but do you honor God with it? Look at your checkbook. Look at what you're giving to or not giving to, at all. You're giving to your credit card. You're giving to your house. You're giving to other things in your life. I don't know if it's razor thin, but I think it's kind of obvious for us that whether I love money or not, and love one and hate the other, I think it's a principle of action, and Jesus is calling us to in that moment, Because I think anything we do in when it comes to this in this context is, well, show me, that you love me, prove it in this moment, test me, with this part of your life, right?
Yeah.
And because it is a test. It is a test. I feel like it's always a test.
Right. And
it's always a test.
The thing about a test is the test usually comes after a period of you doing well.
Yeah.
So like when, you're an employer,
yeah.
If you want to test an employee, usually it's because they've done a good job. Now let me test you with more.
Sure.
I'm going to give you more access to resources and
Yeah.
see what you do with it. Like it's usually a challenge to
More
you're on the right track.
responsibility.
More
Yeah.
responsibility or
Yeah.
growth. Not I want to see if you'll where the failure point is.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the goal at all. And
No.
so when it and so we get tested by God, but we
Yeah.
also get tested, I think, by evil as well when
Uh-huh.
it comes to our money and how to deal with stuff.
Yeah. I think it's always something we just, there's something in us that, oh no, this is great. This is good. So it's just like you do it under compulsion, and you do it. When it comes to like buying something or stuff, that's always out there. Any type of, you pick up your phone and, we talked about this the other day. We were laughing because it was like, we want Scott to buy a motorcycle. And so we're talking into his phone, motorcycle.
Hoping
So
the algorithms
hoping
pick it up.
algorithms, and it's true. And like the algorithms of everything, like, is always trying to vie for your finances and vie for your time and vie for your everything about that. And when we don't honor God with our time, our talents, and our treasure, that right there tells you where your how much of your life is involved in whether you love the one or hate the other. Of what Jesus, in the context of how Jesus was framing it.
Why do you think why can't somebody say I love both? I love God. I just also happen to love money as well.
Yeah, sure.
Like, why have you ever thought about or gone like sat with that process of like why Jesus says no, these two things cannot coexist together, that they're in fundamental opposition to each other?
I think it is one will always want to be your God. I just think it's just that plain and simple. Like, one is just going to, you can't love both. You can enjoy, listen, the blessing is for enjoyment. Scripture tells us that. I read a scripture that Paul talked about too, that there's enjoyment that God wants when we're blessed, but it's not to, have your life, like rule over your life. And so you're there's always one that's going to vie for your attention for your others. And I think it's just putting God first in your time, your talents, and your treasure. And I think it's all those areas of your life where you just have to give to God first in those areas and spaces. Because I've always heard people, well, I tithe my time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But he's not asking you to do that. He's asking you to time, talent, and treasure. It's all the above. It's not one or the other. He challenges with all of those things. And so, but I think stuff and money is always going to have its voice in your life, and it's always drawing. Listen, we all get sucked into it. All of us, including me, we all get sucked into that. And I think it's like, okay, I need to step back. This is really starting to control my life, and to where maybe I wouldn't give to a certain thing because I'm thinking, well, I got to do this now. This has tied me down. And again, it's being a slave. Again, going back to Proverbs 22, it's like I'm a slave to the lender. And God doesn't want me to be a slave to that. Right. And which will tie you to trying to make more money and trying to tie you to more, all of those things. And I think it is an incredible test to of your life where that's vying for your attention, but yet, you know what? Clarity is freedom. And when I am clear that my value is to be generous first, that I'm going to be generous first and I can say no to the noise, the background noise that wants me to do something else with it. It gives me the freedom to say no to it. Yeah. Because when I value clarity is free, like when I value my time with my wife, it gives me the freedom to say no to other things.
Right.
That will pull me away from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It gives you a clear direction.
Yeah.
Being really intentional.
Intentional. Yeah.
I think Craig Rochelle makes this point in a lot of his teaching, which is just awesome, by the way, on generosity and wealth. He just says, like, nobody is accidentally generous.
Oh, yeah.
It requires, I think that's kind of what you're saying.
That's
it
right,
requires profound intentionality.
There's a scripture on it somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head. But
Okay,
there is a scripture.
It'll come to you probably in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this, like you don't accidentally buy somebody's meal. Like you have to really okay, I'm deciding to do this or I'm planning to do this at this point. Until it becomes a part of your life, you have to very intentionally decide I'm going to be generous. What do you think about this quote from Jesus in Matthew 19? He says, if you want to be perfect, here we go. If you want to be perfect, hey, everyone listening, this is what Jesus says. If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give them to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me.
Who is he talking to there?
Can you imagine? It definitely, I think it was a rich young ruler who comes to him. If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions, give them to the poor. But here's the thing. Imagine, I'm trying to picture a pastor standing on stage in a church, whatever size church, 60 or 60,000, and saying, hey guys, if we really want to follow Jesus, anybody in their heart who feels like they have a money issue, here's what I want you to do to get access to Jesus. I want you to go sell everything that you have,
give to the poor.
all your possessions. I want you to give it to the poor, and then I want you to follow Jesus. Like if that was the message coming from a pastor, I think he would be booed off the stage as a heretic for quoting the very words of Jesus.
Yeah, there is no doubt about it. Which tells you where your heart is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that was the point. Him talking to the rich young ruler was, he. I think Jesus already knew what was in his heart.
Sure.
He just wanted to make him not an example, but
he's dealing with it.
He's dealing with it.
Yeah. Jesus has a way. I mean, he just gets straight to the point with people. Same with the woman at the well. Like her issue wasn't money. It was lust or men or security or whatever, and he just gets straight to it. Like he doesn't mince his words. But I just think it's such an important lesson for us. Like Jesus doesn't hold back on, look, there's a whole bunch of needy people and there's a whole bunch of access to a lot of wealth. The issue is not wealth, it's the distribution of wealth. And within the church, we're not going to play that game.
And I think the willingness of, when you heard the story, when we talked about that on Sunday in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, the Macedonians that they gave when they were the poorest of the poor.
Right.
The level of poverty that they had, Paul said, extreme poverty and going through incredible trials in their life. And so here it is. You think when you think of the very poorest people on the planet, you think of the Western Hemisphere, the Haitians, the poorest people in the Western Hemisphere. So you're thinking that level, at least now, of what we would think poor would be. I'm thinking they were even more poor than that because of our world now. But and when you look at that, you think about that, you think, but yet they were generous and joyful in doing that. I mean, man, usually poverty and you're under extreme trial is correlated with suffering and depression and anxiety, and they're going to hold on to what they actually have,
right,
whatever that is. But they welled up with extreme generosity.
Yeah.
And he continues throughout that chapter just praising them for how generous they were.
Yeah.
As a model for the rest of the churches, for Corinth and people.
Yeah, it's such a mic drop moment, isn't it? Because it's like, hey guys, these guys have nothing yet they're able to produce and be so much more generous than.
Wow. Yeah. And it's not the amount, is it, John?
No,
not the amount,
yeah.
right? It's not even about the amount.
Equal sacrifice over equal giving is kind
Yeah.
of the phrase that's often used.
Yeah.
There's a widow who throws her mite into,
That's
right.
right.
the temple, and Jesus says she gave 100%. She gave everything. She gave far more than all of these, righteous people that you see walking in, throwing, bags of money into there.
Yeah.
Doing it in front of everybody. Yeah, so there's something about equal sacrifice. And I think the thing is, when you earn more money, that you have to give more to feel the sacrifice. That's the point. It's a percentage. It's not a dollar amount.
That's right.
And so it's the same pain for everybody, whether
That's
you're poor
right.
or whether you're rich.
That's right.
Everyone feels that tug at the heart when they have to let go or
That's
open
right.
up there.
If people think that if they're not giving now, when they make more money, it only make them more greedy. Because they're not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're generous now and you don't make that much, when you get more money, you're going to actually be more generous because it's all about the heart.
Well, like I think you said this, that money amplifies.
Yeah.
So if you're already greedy when you're poor,
That's right.
money will amplify that greed,
Yeah.
or it'll amplify your generosity.
That's right.
It's like salt. It's a magnifying glass. So whatever you put on it, that flavor will become, it'll rise to the surface.
Yeah. Here's the statement: more money won't make you more generous. It will make you more of what you already are.
Yeah.
So either you're generous or you're not, and it's just and I think that's that it's just challenging, right?
Yeah,
It's but
it'll amplify your problems as well.
Yeah.
Money. I don't know any rich person that lives anxious free.
yeah, that's true. There's
tends to
actually
amplify their problems.
it tends to amplify because there's anxiety around it. Like there's just so much you got to manage with it.
More to protect.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It usually means more employers. It means more money all over the
Yeah.
place. It means more assets. When the stock market turns, it hits you way harder.
Then
if you've got $100 in the bank account
Yeah.
versus 100 million and the stock market turns, trust me, the person with 100 million is losing sleep.
Yeah, if that market's 25% down, trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me,
They're feeling that.
They're
a lot
feeling
more.
it. Yeah,
Even though it's the same amount.
it's the same amount. Yeah,
like
exactly.
percentage-wise that it's dropped. Yeah. C.S. Lewis says this. He says, "We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered us. We are far too easily pleased." Is that ultimately the deceptive lie that money brings you happiness? And is that really what Jesus is teaching us? That actually joy is found not in your possessions or in your wealth. Like it just doesn't exist there.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, that's C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. I wrote, it's interpreted as a reflection on how we can be, distracted by material wealth from what truly satisfies us.
Yeah. Someone called it one time. I've heard it called this affluenza.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's like you
affluence.
got affluence, but
flu.
it's the flu. Yeah, affluenza. It's like the flu, and it where that kind of finances, those kinds of the wealth that you desire or whatever. That's why I said on Sunday, I said in here in this room, what would make you feel rich, right? And I said, I already know the answer. It's more than what you're making now. The person that's making $30,000 or the person making $500,000, they're going to say more money.
Right.
That's just what they're going to say. Right. That's what they're going to say to make you feel that way. Mm-hmm. And so there's a feel to it, and it's tied to what we would call, what Scripture would say, the flesh, or what would be tied to our hearts. And this is generosity is a deterrent for affluenza.
Yeah.
It's like the vitamin C to the flu. It's like I almost said ivermectin, to COVID, or whatever. But it's whatever it is that you can take to keep sickness away. Generosity is that. It really is. It's so tied to us in such a way and has such a stronghold and power over our lives. Again, all you have to do is look at your bank account. It will tell you where your monies are going. Is any of those portions of your finances looking like generosity to the world? You know, and there's things that Pearl and I do that I don't like to tell people what we do, but I sometimes I think you have to.
You need a model.
You need a model, right? You have to, because you don't want to, you know, the right hand telling with, you know, all that stuff. But there's things that we do even for my, you know, my mother-in-law. She's a widow, and the Bible tells us to take care of widows.
Right.
So we're taking care of a widow.
Yeah.
You know, financially, physically, all those things that we want to take. We want to do what God has called us to do. And when you're not tied to that, you can go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and give to that. You can go ahead and give to this. You can go ahead to bless somebody. You can do these things. Do those little blessing things that it's not on the radar of anyone else, because you know what? Your life isn't tied to that part. Life is tied to your stuff. Yeah, totally. Do you think we can get a little bit? It'd be really interesting to do some studies on this, but do you think we can just kind of forget about the plight of the vulnerable? Because nowadays, the way our cities are built and set up, you know, what we tend to do is we buy a house within our same economic status, people group. And, you know, and so if you're in a nice enough neighborhood, that's where you live, that's where you go to the park, that's where you play, you go to work with people who are roughly in the same economic status as you-ish bracket. And we don't have to walk through the dirty parts of town. We don't have to live in you know, Pigtown, is it? Or Pig Street. That's right.
You know,
Pigtown.
Pigtown, in Baltimore or in the projects. It's not visible for us. And so I think we can kind of skim through life without realizing the need around us, because we created these bubbles in our life, these socioeconomic bubbles that we kind of exist in. And that's the beauty of church, is everybody comes. Everyone has a seat at the table. The rich, the poor, like the old, the young. You get this total mix of everybody coming to eat the same food, to hear the same word. That's right. To sit at the same table, as it were. That's right.
And not show favoritism.
Yeah, exactly. And Paul warns against that. Like, women don't wear gold in your hair and jewelry and all of these things, not because it's wrong to have wealth, but like, don't make people feel small and insecure when they're coming into the same place.
That's why I wear holes in my jeans.
Exactly.
No, it's true, John. I think a lot of that is true. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, we moved out to a bedroom community of Baltimore, Harford County, and a lot of that was due to school systems for our sons. You know, and, they didn't go to private school. We didn't spend money on private school, but we did send them to public school. But there were just better systems. You know, and you do that. Totally. You know, and I'm not saying you're railing against that. I'm just saying I am so with that and understand that but yet at the same time, you know, during those seasons of our boys' lives, we sent them to third world countries. And we made sure that they saw the plight of the hurting, not just in our own backyard, but also around the world, which helped them to create empathy and helped them to create some of the empathy toward people. And so in that we kind of coached that part, you know. And
well, that leads exactly into my point that I think we can get so locked into our bubbles that we all have to remember to step outside. We all have to go. I think it's important to go to the kitchen that is feeding the homeless and serve there.
City Beat Dream Center.
City Beat. I mean, if you haven't done that, just go.
Do it.
Yeah, go. I mean, they're just awesome. Jared and Ashley. Amazing couple. Amazing. But we go there as a staff. And it's I've been to the third world. I've been to Durban, Africa, and the slums, and seen miles of it in Albania, and you know, and not all of Albania, but rough parts of Albania, and so on and so forth. But I forget so quickly. I hop back into my car and I'm annoyed at the person who's at the lights. And I'm like, hold on, there's a perspective here. And so I just think we need to, all Christians should regularly be in contact and be in fellowship and be serving somebody who is super vulnerable.
And I think what helps us too, John, is even though we may live in more of what someone would call an affluent neighborhood or whatever, whatever, middle class, whatever, but that, church is full of, our church does look like parts of the world. Mm-hmm. It's not just a white church.
No, absolutely
It's multicultural church. It's a church that looks like our community, and it's mixed from Asians to Africans to whites to Hispanics to so all we have a beautiful cup, a soup bowl of the world at our church, and I think and economic backgrounds, economically for people, some poor, some middle class, some maybe a little above middle class, so it's mixed in there, and the beautiful thing is it all comes together, and we love each other, but yet at the same time you and I get to hear some of the hurting and the plight of someone else within that mix, which helps us still stay connected to the plight and the hurting around us as well.
Yeah, and the church can be this connection point, and pastors can function as conduits for you need this. I know 10 people who actually have the resources to help you with this, and
we're so benevolent as a church. We're more than willing to help people, and our own community. Knowing that I'm not able to go to City Beach Dream Center every week and serve, but we sure can give to it.
Absolutely,
we have the wherewithal to pour finances into that, into Solid Rock Ministries. Pastor Ed and Gloria de Blasio, into Breathe 379, Mike Nolan, and guys like that are feeding and clothing and praying and seeing people come to Christ through the heart of giving and how they do it in those capacities.
That's so good, because a lot of Christians, I think, the temptation is to think, in order to be a good Christian, I need to give up my job and I need to go work in a soup kitchen. And maybe that is your calling. And if God calls you to do that. Start a soup kitchen. I would never want to stop or hinder anybody from doing that. Absolutely. But the vast majority of us, our calling is to work in our vocation, to be a blessing in our vocation.
That's
and work hard at it.
Yeah, work hard.
But then to take that resources to help support. Not everybody needs to be a missionary.
No.
Some are called pastors, some are called prophets, some are called there's a small selection of the fivefold ministry.
Listen, I've been a part of mission trips. I've been on month mission trips. I've been on mission trips where it's weeks at a time. I am not called to be a missionary.
No, exactly.
There's no way.
Grace.
I don't have that grace.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was impactful. It changes your life, but I promise you, I do not want to do it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's true for a lot of people, but understanding that your vocation can be your mission.
Absolutely.
It is your mission. It's your mission field. Not just to tell everybody about Christ, but to work it and to work well and to build up resources to be able to support people who are right on the front lines.
That's right.
But then not just to do that, but to help them to get your hands dirty as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I've always encouraged people to go on the mission field whenever you can. Whatever mission trips that we have or are doing, be a supporter of it. Yes, give to it, and or we want you to go on one. Because that's really important.
It's eye opening.
It's so eye opening, and again, I sent my kids on it, and I. Hopefully in the future when I have grandkids, I'll send them on trips too. Yeah.
It's, I can still remember, you go to an orphanage and you're picking up kids whose families have left them on doorsteps or I don't want to go.
Oh, it's hard. It's heart-wrenching.
And it's very hard to be upset about the ding on your door from the car park when you're holding this life there that is now dependent on whatever you can provide for.
That's right.
And we need that reminder more than once a decade.
Oh, come on, man.
We forget. We're those kinds of people, aren't we? That people forget, Jesus, God is always remember.
Remember. That's why we do communion. We're in remembrance.
Remember.
Come on, guys, let's remember what Jesus did for us here. Yeah, it was pretty impactful.
Exactly. Oh man, well, that's a good sort of introduction to generosity. But yeah, be generous. Don't let fear and greed grip your life. You are in control of your money. Money is not in control of you. I'll round this out. All right. Well, we hope that this some way enriched your life. Be blessed. Make sure that you click, like, subscribe, do all of those things. And we hope that this in some way has enriched your life. God bless.